Last season in March, the Warriors received a blow that they thought would end their season. Marcus Smart dove for the ball, hurt Curry's ankle, and a huge chunk of the Warriors fan base went absolutely silent. They thought the season was over, but instead, in a couple of months, the opposite happened. The Warriors went on a historic run where we saw them defeat the two-time reigning MVP, wipe the smiles off Ja Almost Morant and Dylan Dynasty Brooks, gentlemen swept the NBA's newest golden boy, Luka Doncic, and then put on a masterclass against the Boston Celtics where they captured ring number 4. Well, it's the exact same thing that is happening again this season, and without further ado, let's get into it. For some reason, Steph Curry always gets injured around this time of the year. I mean, 2 years ago, he fell on some metal stairs. Last year, his ankles got tackled. Then this year, it was on a defensive play. Some people may call this a disaster. Some people may be in disbelief. Some people may be saying that the Warriors' chances of winning another championship just flew out the window. But you know what Kawhi Leonard and his camp would call this? An opportunity for load management. Sheesh, guys. The crazy thing is, that's probably not an exaggeration. Kawhi Leonard and his camp would actually open champagne bottles if the basketball gods gifted them with something like this, because the truth is, the Warriors actually got really lucky with the timing and extent of this injury, and in hindsight, this could be exactly what the doctor ordered. First off, I watched video after video and read article after article trying to get the full scoop of the injury. And from what I gathered, Steph will be out for 3 to 5 weeks as he recovers from this latest setback. And like I said, sometimes accidents can really be a blessing in disguise. And here's what I mean. First off, it allows Steph to be fully charged for a playoff run. Let's be honest, Steph runs like a bajillion miles every game. I mean, if you just watch him during the Warriors games, it could be hard sometimes to tell if he's playing basketball or running a marathon. And I'm sure a lot of defenders think the same thing when they're guarding him. But anyway, having your star player exhausted and tired for the postseason, especially as he turns 35 years old, is the last thing any team wants. I mean, just ask Clippers superstar Kawhi Leonard. He actually does this on purpose for Pete's sake, and it turned into a championship a few years ago. Now, some of y'all might be saying that Steph getting injured is the last thing the Warriors need because he could be extremely rusty when he comes back. And to that I'll say, well, he still has a month or so to get his rhythm back, and did you forget what happened last season? Because if my memory serves me correctly, after missing a month from his Marcus Smart injury, he came back in that first round of the playoffs and against the Nuggets, averaged 28 points while shooting 50% from the field, 40% from three-point range, and on top of that, he also saved Gary Payton's life from Nikola Jokic. And speaking of a big guy like Jokic, this leads directly to my next point, and that's the fact that this injury might just be what the Warriors needed to give birth to the big ticket. Right now, a lot of people are calling him a bust, but hey, a good stretch of games can do wonders for any player in understanding his role and for the narrative surrounding him to do a complete 180. Look guys, the truth is, although I don't wish any injuries upon anybody, about a decade ago, it was the injury to David Lee that allowed Draymond Green to get his chance to showcase what he could do. He went from a tweener that was stuck between the small and power forward positions to revolutionizing the small ball center position. Then last season, again, it was the injury to Steph Curry that really gave birth to the pool party. Because look, prior to that Marcus Smart dive, Jordan Poole was averaging just 17 points a ball game and 3.6 assists, which isn't bad. But after receiving the opportunity to lead the team, the pool party was born, as JP3 started averaging nearly 26 a ball game along with 6 assists. I ain't saying that Wiseman is going to be an instant superstar, but hey, if Steve Kerr now has to shuffle the rotations a bit, and if Wiseman is allowed more time on the court, he could at least become Superman. I mean, a 7-foot rim running big who can barbecue players on one end and be the last line of defense on the other end is literally the last piece of the puzzle for the Warriors. And if they could just get that part right, then nobody, I repeat, nobody is gonna want to see them in the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, the Warriors wouldn't have won the postseason last year without the help of Andrew Air Canada Wiggins. But sadly, ever since coming back from his injury, he hasn't looked like his former self. Because look at these numbers. Prior to his injury, Wiggins was playing like an all-star, averaging 19 points while shooting 51% from the field and 45% from three-point range. But in the 11 games or so that he's been back, he's putting up 12 points a game while shooting 38% from the field and just 25% from beyond the arc. But with Steph being out now, I'm sure that Wiggins knows that he has to play his A game on a nightly basis in order for the Warriors to stay relevant. Maybe if he just rewatches his highlights of last year's postseason, like when he ended Luka Doncic's career with that dunk of the year, maybe that'll reignite All-Star Wiggs. Anyway, one of the keys for the Warriors last year was their depth. I mean, they just had player after player after player coming off the bench and providing that spark, and this year, it's no different. They're actually so deep that they have to pick one of two players to keep on the team due to the rules surrounding two-way contracts. It's a classic scenario of two guys hanging off a cliff, and you can only save one of them. Ty Jerome or Anthony Lamb? Ty Jerome or Anthony Lamb? Ty Jerome or Anthony Lamb? I honestly wish one of them played like a bum or something because that'd make the whole process a lot easier. But looking at the numbers, they both shoot 50% from the field, 40% from three. In other words, they're both really good role players. But now with Steph out, they're going to need a backup point guard, so automatically it looks like the Warriors are going to require Ty's services a bit more. But man, it's still a hard decision because Anthony Lamb was absolutely instrumental with the success of the Warriors bench. So guys, I may receive a lot of hate for this, but hey, someone has to say it. The Warriors should waive Andre Iguodala and sign both the two-way players. As much as I hate to say it, if a player is too injury-riddled to play in any games but has a lot of influence with the players, then that person should clear a spot on the roster and become an assistant coach. I mean, if he could play, he'd definitely have a spot on the roster, but the thing is, he's only played 3 games so far all season? And then in that game against San Antonio, he went up for that dunk, probably pulled a muscle or something, then pretty much we've never seen him in action since. Anyway, I want to move on to a point that isn't talked about enough, and that's the fact that we've already seen every team at their best already, except the Warriors. And here's what I mean. In the West, the Nuggets have been healthy and playing their best brand of basketball. The Grizzlies have been as well, although they have been embarrassing themselves. But that's neither here nor there. Then in the East, the Celtics have been practically at 100% and showing us their best. The Bucks have been showing us their best, and so have the 76ers. The Nets, on the other hand, showed the NBA their best. Then they imploded just a month later, for Pete's sake. Sheesh. They went on a 12-game win streak, and then they just imploded. I need to make a video about the BFF relationship between Kyrie and Nets owner Joe Tsai, but again, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, Warriors. The thing about these Warriors that makes them different from any other championship caliber team is that they haven't peaked yet. To start the season, half the roster was new. There were chemistry problems with that whole Draymond and Poole fiasco. There were injury bugs, and the list goes on and on. But halfway through the season, Kuminga started to ascend, the two-way players started to figure out Kerr's system, Klay Thompson finally started to look like Klay Thompson. But still, as of today, according to my calculations, the Warriors have only shown about 2/3 of the level they're capable of. Yet the crazy thing is, despite all this, they still have the 3rd best home record in the conference, and they have a better conference record than the Memphis Grizzlies. How crazy is that? Seriously, I've been saying this all season, but after the All-Star break is when we'll start seeing what this team is really capable of. But with everything being said so far, it looks like the Warriors are primed for another championship postseason run. Sure, they may just end up being in the play-in tournament, but who cares? As long as they make the playoffs, right? Because look, once they're there, they're gonna be pretty hard to beat. While they may be sloppy every game here and there, beating them in a 7-game series is gonna be next to impossible. I mean, they still have their championship core of 6 players who are gonna be ready. Then when it comes to their bench, Dante has been playing great. Kuminga has turned into a reliable force of nature. The two-way players are arguably the best two-way players in the league. And then there's that 7-footer I was talking about earlier. 11 deep, guys. 11 deep. The pieces of the puzzle are almost set in place, and because of this Steph Curry injury, the Warriors are going to take a page out of Kawhi's book, and you know what? They're going to do it again.